Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. More specifically, a brand new Albums I Missed video, the very first of 2024. Today, we will be talking about a slew of albums that came out in the month of January that, unfortunately, I just didn't really have the chance to talk about. Maybe I was busy, couldn't fit it into the normal album review content upload schedule. Maybe I was not made aware of the album's existence until very recently, or maybe I just didn't really give a crap and decided, screw it, I'm just gonna toss it in the albums I missed pile, because why not? Whatever the case, we didn't talk about them before, now we are, here we are, let's do this, and let's start specifically with Hellfire and Damnation, the 26th full-length studio album from English heavy metal legends Saxon. It's fine! It's fine. It's fine. Like, whatever, it's fine. Okay? It's fine. It's fine. Look, Saxon have been around for well over 40 years by now. They typically drop something every couple of years, and typically it's your good old-fashioned meat and potatoes classic heavy metal. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just personally kind of bored with it. Like, I just don't fucking give a shit anymore. Credit where it's due, it's a pretty well-produced collection of meat and potatoes heavy metal bangers. It's cool to see Brian Tatler of Diamond Head fame on lead guitar as well. But I just found this album to be incredibly predictable. I mean, Saxon have always been a pretty paint-by-numbers classic heavy metal band, in my opinion, and, I mean, this album is a prime example as to why I would think that. I'm not expecting Saxon to do anything groundbreaking or revolutionary on album number 26 after 40 years of being a fucking band, but, like, also, look at, like, Cannibal Corpse, who have been around for 30 years, and they're getting more technical, and they're getting more brutal, and they're doing different things with the production. Look at Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, who have shown that they're not afraid to go into more progressive, high-concept, and ambitious territory. Look at Ozzy Osbourne collaborating with Eric Clapton, Elton John, Andrew Watt, Todd McFarlane, Post Malone, Travis Scott. And then there's Saxon just doing the same thing, literally the same thing, over and over and over again. I'm just bored. Straight up. No disrespect to people who want to eat classic heavy metal meat and potatoes every single night of the week, but I don't. So, yeah, I don't hate this album. I listened to it. I enjoyed it while it was on. I will probably never listen to it ever again, because it's predictable and boring. Next! Next up, we have Saints Dispelled from Master, brand new studio album from these long-running American death metal underdogs. Very, like, old-school, primitive, sinister death metal in terms of its sound and feel and vibe. Like, this feels very much within the realms of, like, stuff from Classic Massacre and Obituary. Lots of slimy, monstrous vocals, lots of very sinister, brutal death metal guitar riches, and some scorching classic death metal guitar solos. And unlike Saxon, Master understand that doing the same thing over and over, not always great. They're able to keep things fresh by throwing in some groovier assaults here and there, some thrashy barrages, some different dynamics and pyrotechnics here and there, some subtle melodies that give everything a little bit of height and weight and extra spice. By no means groundbreaking, revolutionary shit here, but it's fun, it's well delivered, I dig it. If I want meat and potatoes, this is kind of what I'm looking for, you know? Like meat and potatoes metal with a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of extra spice. If you're looking for a fix of good old-fashioned classic death metal goodness, this might be it. Straight up. Next up, we have Nagon from Blood Red Throne. This is definitely an example of an album that just flew under the radar for me. I wasn't even aware of this thing's existence until a couple of days ago. Side note, I'm not, like, super familiar with Blood Red Throne in general. Like, I'm aware of them, but I don't know a lot about them. So as a result, I kind of went into Nagon a little blind. Not completely blind. Like, blind in one eye. Or, like, blind but in the way that, like, Daredevil is blind. But, like, still blind. You know what I mean? I don't even know what I'm saying. Look, the point is, I'm not an expert, but I like Blood Red Throne, and I want to check out some more of their stuff after this. I like the mix of, like, Scandinavian death and black metal influences with, like, American death metal influence. Like, it's a little bit of Grave, Entombed, Cadaver, Dayside. Like, it's got some genuinely pretty twisted licks and harmonies and some really punishing fucking grooves. It's consistently dark and sinister and brutal. Much like the aforementioned Master album, Blood Red Throne are able to keep things pretty fresh by throwing in different influences and spices and dynamics and such. There's a few, like, almost groove metal-esque segments here and there that I especially enjoy with, like, these churning, like, devastating fucking guitars. Like, it just kind of sounds like a chainsaw, like, being slowly driven back and forth through your stomach. Like, it's so good. Yeah, hard to argue with what we got here, man. Just, like, good, sick, brutal death metal goodness with a bunch of different little flavors and garnishes and such. Highly recommend this. Next up, we have All Death Is Mine, Total Domination, kind of a cover album, compilation album of sorts from long-running American metallic hardcore veterans Integrity. Put simply, it's a bunch of stuff that the band worked on in the late 2010s, kind of brought together, tracks that were maybe released on certain EPs or other compilations or whatever the fuck, or maybe they were never released at all. But now they're here in one convenient and, dare I say, pretty fun package. Like, Integrity are one of the best, like, hardcore, metalcore, metallic hardcore, whatever the fuck you want to call them, bands out there. Consistently vicious, consistently cutthroat, consistently nasty, and that remains the same even on this cover/compilation album. I mean, this thing just goes straight for the jugular with every fucking song. I mean, you got the title track, All Death Is Mine, which just has this really nasty underground kind of punk charge and momentum to it, but paired with, like, really old school kind of, like, heavy metal, dare I say even first wave black metal charm. Like, this thing kind of feels like a classic hardcore punk or crossover thrash kind of band writing a Venom song. It goes super hard. You got quite a few Septic Death covers as well. From what I understand, they were originally made for some kind of Septic Death tribute album or EP. They're harsh, and they're noisy, and they're super unforgiving. Definitely not for the faint of heart. One of my favorites here, though, is Night of the Vampire, originally from Rocky Erickson. Like, it just has this really cool, chilling atmosphere, you know, with agonizing, drawn-out screams and static, but, like, also these weirdly kind of, like, classic rock kind of guitar licks and passionate solos. Yeah, I like this one a lot, honestly. Of all the albums we're talking about today in this video, this is maybe one of my favorites. Not gonna lie. Not my number one favorite, but it's up there. It's up there, honestly. Next up, we have Legend from Exocrine. This is the 6th full-length studio album from this French technical death metal crew. I feel comfortable saying at this point, these guys are getting more technical and more brutal and tighter with every single release, and this is their most technical, their most brutal, and their tightest album to date. There is an undisputed surgical precision to absolutely every single moment on this record. It is filled with destructive, rampaging vocals and insane machine gun style percussion and, like, all these soaring, screeching, shredding guitar pyrotechnics and genuine bits of, like, full-on tech death prog metal wankery. And it's so well focused and so well organized and so well put together. It's almost in a way on par with something I would expect from Archspire or Gorod, though not quite as much of a masterclass in, like, tech death songwriting and presentation. But I mean, who knows? If Exocrine continues at this level, maybe the next album could be. Like, honest to fucking God. This probably wouldn't change the mind of anyone who, like, outright hates modern tech death for valid reasons, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I was entertained by it. I think that Exocrine, they got a lot of potential, and they're finally really starting to tap into that. Like, if you're looking for some over-the-top, hyper-technical death metal goodness, you found it. Congratulations. You're gonna love this fucking thing, if you don't already. Next up, we have a brand new EP from Alluvial entitled Death Is But a Door. This is the brainchild of one Wes Houch, who you may remember from brief stints in The Faceless, Black Crown Initiate, Thy Art Is Murder. He is also currently a member of Glass Casket, having performed on their self-titled EP from last year. I've been following this band since their debut, The Deep Longing for Annihilation, back in 2017. I was a big fan of Sarcoma, the sophomore, in 2021. We actually interviewed Wes here on the Metal Meltdown. As such, I was looking forward to checking out this EP, and I'm not disappointed. With this EP, we're seeing Alluvial kind of stretch their wings and do some different things. I mean, if you're familiar with the band, then you will already also be familiar with their take on progressive death metal, some erratic guitar squeals and techniques and pyrotechnics, a lot of moody, introspective songwriting, and some really powerful vocal work. With this one, though, I do find that there's some more, like, deathcore influence being brought in, which I don't mind. I actually think it works pretty well with what Alluvial is doing. The slower, more gradual, muscular builds and progressions, it adds a lot of weight to this. Like, Fogbelt especially is this very, like, eerie and meticulous kind of, like, deathcore banger with some really, like, slow-moving, grueling, like, churning grooves and some monstrous vocals and some very erratic kind of, like, guitar pyrotechnics and such. Love the use of, like, strained, anguished, agonizing clean vocals on the title track as well. And, of course, Bog Dweller, which is, just the full-on, like, technical, progressive death metal insanity that I know and love from Alluvial. In conclusion, very cool, very fun EP, a lot of interesting ideas and flavors here. Looking forward to seeing how some of this stuff would be fleshed out and expanded upon on a future studio album, which I have to assume is maybe on the way. I mean, it's been 3 years since Sarcoma, so fingers crossed. Next up, we have another EP, this time from Escula Grind, entitled Death Metal. I assume that's how you're supposed to pronounce it because the title is so drawn out. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. I don't think I am, though. I've heard a lot about these guys, and to be honest, I've never really checked out their stuff, and that's entirely on me. It is, straight up. I don't even have a good excuse. I do know that I'm going to try, or at least try to change that because, I mean, this EP, it goes hard. It's bonkers. It's stupid heavy and ballsy and nasty. This is the third entry in, like, a series of EPs that the band has done, exploring, like, different genres of extreme metal. I think they did, like, a full-on grindcore one in the past. This one's full-on death metal, and it's filled with pulverizing grooves and breakdowns and beatdowns. You've got like some old school death metal riffs and energy and shit combined with some slammy sections, combined with some brutal death metal sections. There's a little bit of like 90s death grind influence kind of creeping its way in now and then, which I think is especially cool. As an added bonus, Barney Greenway of Napalm Death fame shows up on the closing number Meat Magnet. Love the, like, punishing, noisy, hypercharged, grindy bits and pieces of Punishment Ritual as well. Opening number Ball and Chain is filled with some nasty slamming moments. An excellent slice of death metal destruction for sure. I'm really gonna have to, like, chain myself down and listen to more Escula Grind, because holy shit. Next up, we have a self-titled album from Digus, as I believe their name is pronounced. This is the third full-length studio album from this underground American death metal crew, and it's a weird one. It's a little bit funky. I'm gonna warn y'all right off the bat. There's definitely a lot to admire about this record, the way that it combines like this really primitive, gnarly, slimy kind of like death metal sound with these more progressive tendencies and ambitions and these more angular like riffs and these more unorthodox soundscapes. Like that's legit pretty cool. It's consistently unpredictable, and it's consistently intriguing and fascinating as a result of that. Like, it's exciting that it can be, like, a really simplistic, like, slimy, gross death metal record, but also it can be a little bit more intelligent and throw in, like, different layers and different guitar melodies and harmonics. Like, it almost kind of reminds me of, like, Tomb Mold to an extent. Like, pre-planetary clairvoyance. Unfortunately, the cohesion and the tightness I expect from Tomb Mold and from other like underground death metal bands playing like really slimy, scuzzy stuff or doing more progressive stuff, like that's just not really here. Like it's just not a very smooth or seamless record, and even in its most basic moments, something just always feels kind of off. And sometimes in a cool way, and other times just not, to be blunt. And, like, considering that there are, like, weirder elements to this album, I think it would benefit, frankly, from a cleaner, louder mix. Overall, a lot of cool ideas here. I'm just kind of unsure on how I feel about the execution. But I would say if you're looking for something weirder and funkier from, like, just nasty, gnarly underground death metal, hey, this is for you. Congratulations. Enjoy. Next up, we have As Spoken from Knoll. I have been anticipating the release of this record for some time, and honestly, had we not done the reviewing every Static X album video, this might have gotten an album review. But hey, c'est la vie, it is what it is. At least we get to talk about it here and now, and that's a good thing because holy fucking shit! This thing is fucking awesome, dude. Dark, depraved, miserable, misanthropic, noisy, abrasive, like blackened grindcore with all these like weird angular textures and like almost kind of like avant-garde style movements and progressions. It's like if Portal and very early Imperial Triumphant did a grindcore record. I mean, it just oozes that same level of like pain and fucking misery and brutality. Just a totally harsh, unforgiving experience from start to finish. It has this really like immersive kind of claustrophobic feel that's really frightening as well. I would say out of every album that we've talked about in January 2024, both here and in regular album reviews, this is one of my favorite albums, right up there with the Cancer Christ LP and the Lord Dying LP, and maybe like the Integrity compilation as like an honorable mention. Next up, we have Experience Machine, sophomore studio album from this American progressive death thrash metal crew, Announce the Apocalypse. Musically, I'm reminded of like classic, high-concept, politically charged technical thrash from like Megadeth. I'm also reminded of like Havoc and Revocation, like the earlier years of those bands kind of like mixed together. I like the feel and the urgency and the intensity of this record. They do a good job at combining more melodic, more technical, more progressive guitar work all together with like gutturals and like some thrashy barrages. The concept of this record too, I think, is pretty interesting, dealing with loneliness and depression and heartache within like this polarizing, dystopian kind of world that very much mirrors our own, and that helps create a very immersive kind of connection to the album. I will say that the riffs could benefit from being sharper and from being a little bit more punishing. The record as a whole could benefit from a beefier, more full body kind of sound and production. But overall, I'm enjoying it. I see a lot of potential in Announce the Apocalypse going forward, and I think if you're looking for a modern twist on technical thrash and death metal, you've found it. And finally, let's start wrapping things up with Dead Mother Moon, the debut studio album from Upon Stone, bringing us a genuinely kind of like unique take and perspective on like 90s metalcore and metallic hardcore and melodic death metal. Like, you have this really in-your-face, like, hardcore spirit combined with, like, cutthroat, classic melodic death metal in the vein of, like, early mid-90s At the Gates. To a certain extent, like, there's some, like, Arch Enemy and In Flames influence here as well. Also, like, more adventurous lyricism and storytelling. Like, it's more epic than your standard kind of, like, metallic hardcore or even mellow death release. I mean, even the album cover of this thing brings to mind power metal more so than it does metalcore or melodeath, you know what I mean? It sounds weird, and at first it really is, but it also really works. I know people say shit like this a lot, but honestly, I really feel like I'm hearing something new from the realms of, like, hardcore, metalcore, and, like, melodeath for the first time in a while. Like, the combination of these sounds and styles and influences and images, it's extremely well done. Like, I listen to this album and I picture, like, a knight in shining armor, like, slicing through hordes of, like, barbarians or orcs or these weird demon creatures. I'm very excited to see what these guys do in the future, like, straight the fuck up. I'm gonna be keeping a very close eye on this band. You know what? Actually, fuck it. I changed my mind. My video, my rules. We're gonna talk about one more album. Lower Form Resistance, the debut from Dissimulator, a French-Canadian sci-fi technical thrash death metal crew heavily inspired by Voivod, featuring members of Beyond Creation and Cathedalist. Holy shit, I'm gonna come. Alright, look, I'm probably very biased here, because this is just full-blown Voivod fucking worship, and I love Voivod. Literally, if Killing Technology was a death metal album, it would be this. It would be Lower Form Resistance. But, like, also, fuck you, I don't give a shit. I just so thoroughly, honestly fucking don't. Sorry, not sorry. I just love how manic and energetic and wild this thing is. I love all the angular, jagged, awkward riffage and, like, the pummeling beats and, like, the wild vocal assaults. Would I recommend in the future Dissimulator maybe branch out a little bit? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But, like, also, fuck it. I'm totally fine with this just literally being Voivod but death metal. I'm fine with that. I really, truly am. It's just fucking fun if you ask me. Check it out. Unless you're fucking lame. I don't know. I hope you're not. Don't be lame. Not intentionally, at least. Come on, man. Come on, man. Alright, now I'm done. I promise. I really am. I gotta go. I'm hungry. I'm in the mood for some jerk chicken. I might go get some jerk chicken. Maybe. Tempting. Although there is that new ramen place that just opened up too. Whatever. Not important. Not for you at least. Now it's your turn to tell me. What albums do you feel I missed in the month of January 2024? What else should I be on the lookout for? Tell me. Please and thank you. Press this button to subscribe if you somehow have not done so already. Look, there's even more videos here. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.